Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa van Dijk, and in today's video I want to talk about why one person can eat fast food all the time and barely break out, while another person tries to eat healthier and suddenly gets breakouts. Because on the surface you would expect it to be the other way around, right? You would think the person eating mostly fast food should have worse skin, and the person adding healthier foods should have better skin. And this is where the common acne explanation never really made sense to me. Because this person is eating everything that is usually blamed for acne, like saturated fats, trans fats, processed foods, sugary foods, and so on. So if their theory was the full explanation, this person should be breaking out all the time. But often that is not what we see. Now, after going through this myself and tracking everything daily for 2 years, I found an explanation that I think could answer this. And I want to show it to you with a few simple infographic style images, because once you see the diet pattern visually, it becomes much easier to understand what might be happening. So I think that the key is not just what someone eats, but how the whole diet is structured. So let's start with the first image of the friend mainly eating fast food. So this person is eating mostly fast food, a fast food breakfast sandwich, hash browns, maybe a tiny apple because he thinks he needs to add something that is considered healthy. Then for lunch, he chooses something like a burger and fries. Then in the afternoon, he grabs a pizza slice or maybe eats chips. And later in the day, when he's watching a movie, he's eating chicken nuggets or wings with Coke or another soft drink. Now this diet is obviously not ideal, but the important part I want you to notice here is that it can stay very consistent in one direction. It is very high in sodium, but very low in potassium-rich whole foods. And just to explain that very simply, sodium is what we mostly get from salt, especially in fast food, sauces, processed foods, restaurant meals, street foods, and salty snacks. Potassium is a mineral that is found in many whole foods, like potatoes, oats, fruit, bean, nuts, seeds, milk, and vegetables. And sodium and potassium help regulate how the body handles water. So with your friend, the body may already be imbalanced, but it is not being challenged very much. Because sodium is high every day, so that becomes the baseline. So essentially, the body is basically marinating in the same salty pattern. And the important part here is that there's not a big potassium shift coming in, because the foods this person is consuming are still very high in salt in almost every meal. I mean, unless the chips were unsalted and completely plain. But generally speaking, most of these foods keep pushing sodium up. So there's no big correction happening. The person may feel normal, their skin may look more stable, and nothing dramatic seems to change, apart from maybe the one pimple he sometimes has. But that does not mean the diet is good for his overall health. It just means the imbalance is staying mostly the same. So the body is stuck in the same sodium-heavy pattern every day. So there may be no big pressure change and no visual correction. And this is where it can get very confusing. Because then you have another person, which is maybe you, who is trying to eat healthier or is currently trying to adjust their diet to something more healthy. So this person starts the day with oats, milk, and dried fruit, which creates a massive potassium shift. Then they have a chicken rice bowl with sauce for lunch, which can be very salty. Later on, yogurt, nuts, and an apple, which again adds a high amount of potassium. And for dinner maybe sushi, smoked salmon, and a soy sauce, which adds another layer of heavy salty foods. And at first this looks much healthier, and in many ways it is healthier. But if you look at what is happening underneath, we can see the problem forming. The sodium is still high because there are still sauces, salty foods, soy sauce, smoked salmon, restaurant-style meals, or processed foods. But now potassium is also jumping up by a lot because of the oats, milk, dried fruits, nuts, vegetables, and other whole foods. So now the body is not just sitting in the same sodium-heavy state anymore, because potassium is coming in. and the body starts trying to correct the imbalance. But if the sodium side is still too high, the correction may not be smooth. It gets challenged because the body is now trying to move back towards balance. So instead of everything balancing out calmly, the body starts shifting fluids. Pressure changes, digestion may feel different. You may feel puffier, swollen, heavy, or reactive. And that can show up as breakouts. So then it looks like the healthy foods cause the acne. Or you start questioning what is actually happening. Or you may even start thinking food has nothing to do with acne because your friend is still eating fast food and his skin looks fine. And then when you search online, the explanation goes back to the same things again. Hormones, oil, sugar, inflammation, or whatever else gets blamed. But I do not think that this is the full picture. I think what those foods are doing is trying to help, and they are revealing the imbalance that was already there. So the issue is that potassium-rich whole foods were added on top of a sodium-heavy baseline. And that can create a bigger shift than the body can handle smoothly. So the fast food person may look more stable, not because the diet is better, but because the imbalance is not being pushed in the same way. And the person eating healthier may react not because the healthier foods are bad, but because the body is finally being forced to move out of the sodium-heavy state. And if that is what is happening, then the solution is not to remove all healthy foods again, because that's what I did initially. And yes, it kind of worked. But it also meant that my diet became more and more narrow, and I could no longer enjoy many of the foods I actually wanted to eat. So the real solution is to change the baseline first. And that means lowering the sodium load by identifying the sodium-heavy meals in your diet. It is often hidden in sauces, marinades, sushi, smoked or canned fish, restaurant meals, processed foods, street foods, and often even in things that look healthy. Then you gradually reduce that sodium load and bring potassium back in through whole foods, so that your body can start to correct the imbalance without creating such a strong reaction. Because once the baseline changes, the same foods that used to look like triggers should not act the same way anymore. Now, if you have any questions about this, please drop a comment below and I'm happy to answer. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!